presence of the Lord, and smote Job with sword, boils, and from the sole of his foot unto his crown. I mean, that's not all that happened to Job, but I mean, that's just a great painful description of him. Be it Job stay faithful to him, but that's just a way of showing how the devil will try to afflict man. So I transition now in verse 13. Therefore, take up the full armor of God, that you may be able to resist in the evil day, and having done everything, to stand firm. I want to go back now to verse 11 just to show how closely related these two verses are. Put on the full armor of God, that you may be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. As you can see, these two verses are so closely related to each other, which again says how important these words must be. Don't try not to lose me here, but it says, in having done everything, to stand firm. So therefore, in everything to stand firm, you must therefore take up the full armor of God, to be able to fully do everything, to stand firm, to be strengthened against these evil things. You must therefore take up the full armor of God. And how powerful those words are, because it shows us how important this armor of God really is. Like I said, I told you a second ago, try to remember that Paul was in jail, writing this letter. Paul was also a Roman citizen, and in that being, he was able to freely move across the nation of Rome, which he did. And as I said before, he wrote this letter again from his house arrest, being constantly guarded by the Roman guard. So he was able to see it on an almost daily basis, especially to the point of writing this letter, of what the guards were wearing, the armor of the guards, what the guards were wearing. So, and of course, every part of the armor of God is what it was referencing to, of what the Roman guards were wearing. So he was very familiar with these things, which you can see once you get into this, just the great analogies he's able to make between the actual physical armor and what it means to us with the analogy. So going into the first armor of God, stand firm therefore, having girded, verse 14, stand firm therefore, having girded your loins with truth. So the first armor of God that Paul mentions is the armor of truth. The girdle of the belt of truth. There was three things that this belt was used for. Just a simple belt. It's about that thick. That it was used for. It's a simple belt. The first thing it was used for was to tuck they wore long garments. They had to tuck the garments into the belt during battle. This enabled them to be able to move freely. With the analogy that Paul's able to use here is that in truth in Jesus allows us Christians to be able to move freely from the things that the devil tries to do at us, which we just mentioned a second ago. The second thing that we're able to, this belt enabled the Roman soldiers to do, was it gave support to soldiers' back, helping them avoid fatigue in battle. Which also, the analogy is said, the truth of God helps us keep from having fatigue in the battle against Satan. Because with the truth of God, we're able to go out and face Satan and what he tries to do with us. Because, like I said, he is known as the great deceiver. But if we know the truth of God, he will deceive us. The third use of the belt that the Romans used was that they actually were able to attach the sword to the belt. Which this is one of the most symbolic, because the sword, as we'll see in a second, was a symbolization of the word of God. So therefore, what this is saying is the truth and the word of God, the Bible here, were actually conjoined together, attached together. The second piece of armor of God would be in the same verse at the bottom, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness. The breastplate, of course, for the Roman soldier, it would go over the head and rest on the shoulders. And it would guard all the vital organs against arrows, darts, sword attacks, and anything that would hit them up in this general area. And the righteousness here is not necessarily of a personal righteousness. Because you see, Paul says that the personal righteousness is that of the law, which we are now free from during the period of grace. However, the righteousness that Paul speaks of here is the righteousness in which we receive through Jesus Christ through faith. The next spiritual truth, next armor of God would be at verse 15, and having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace. This is very easy to want to skip over. It's basically, what it's called here is the shoes of the gospel of peace. We don't really think of shoes being that great of armor. But shoes is the only piece of armor here that is still used in forces today. And I feel I can see it to times to come, because we have much to keep our feet for in battle. If we should keep marching on, we must have the shoes on to keep our soles of our feet good. Now, the symbolicness of this is that with the gospel of peace, the shoes being symbolic to the gospel of peace, we must keep the peace of God with us. Because I can tell you from personal experience, when you lose that peace, so the analogy here is great, because when you lose the peace of God, it's like when you lose that shoe around you, you can go with it for a while, and it seems okay. But as you march deeper into the battle, as the battle gets rougher and the terrain gets rougher, the more you can feel it. The more you can feel this peace in you that's no longer there. And it begins to hurt inside of you, blister inside of you. And then it gets to that's all you can think about, is this peace that's no longer in you. And so you just want to, it's all there is. And like I said, I can speak of this from very personal experience. Came to say that at an early age, went through middle school, your basic Christian middle school, good kid. Went to high school, got in the wrong crowd, got into the wrong things. And slowly the conscience was there, God was there urging me on, and I just went deeper and deeper into it anyway. And it wasn't till one night I was visiting at a different church with a friend, and God just touched me on that point, saying, this is not right. And I could just feel this inside of me, this peace that was just no longer there, just like the shoes are just lifted off and going into this battle, and the pain that you would feel as it gets worse and worse, and I just felt it all at that one time. And at that point, I just needed that peace back. All good that night, was able to overcome many things that night that I normally wouldn't be able to. It was that first thing I had the, let's say, shoes per se, tied on well. Not 2 weeks later, had a family member come up with the coast, drunk, took me out. As I said before, you are to flee from the things of flesh and blood. I should have right then fled and not done anything. But because, no excuses, I went out. The night ended up horrible. I ended up going back into drinking that night. He ended up being arrested for a DUI. I ended up in handcuffs. And all of a sudden, it was just right back in me. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying in any way of losing the salvation. I'm just saying losing the peace inside of you of God. Okay, not God, because God will never leave you. Just that peace of just being there with God. And just out of nowhere, I was out of it again. But through God's great humbleness, He's able to come back, and we feel it. The next one, armor of God, can be found in verse